So Jackie, go ahead.
All right, I want to welcome everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I think this is the most intimate meeting that I remember being at, but that also means it could potentially be one of the most fun because all the cool kids are here. So we won't tell everyone who isn't here that I said that. We are going to start with our Pledge of Allegiance from our Sergeant at Arms, Mr. Rob. Woo.
Thank you, Madam President. If you will all please mute yourselves, focus on my voice and my screen, and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Back to you, Tiernan.
Thank you, Rob. And I'm going to send us to our Toastmaster, our stand-in Toastmaster, Mr. Steve Schwinn. Take it away.
Thank you so much. I think I'm actually the Toastmaster. But I'll run with it. I'm good. You know, I was thinking when we do the Pledge of Allegiance like this, it's made me think about other things that I've seen with online. It's sort of call it almost a formality to how we begin meetings. It seems like these perfunctory tasks almost seem to fall a little bit off the radar. They almost seem like they're losing some of their significance in starting events. It seems like it's just like a Zoom casualty in the making. Just an observation on my part, and I'm sure you'll relish that thought probably well after the meeting, having introduced it all to you. Tonight, I want to thank everyone for making it. We have a nice warm little crowd, as Jackie mentioned, and we have a couple of changes tonight. We have Kathleen stepping into our role as general evaluator, taking over for Eric, and Lloyd will be filling the timer role for Vicky because he errantly put her on there apparently. It's okay, Lloyd, we won't hold it against you. We have a couple of speakers tonight and looking forward to a great meeting. At this point, I would like to introduce our general evaluator to tell us about her role tonight. Kathleen, would you take the stage?
Thank you very much, Steve. I will take the Zoom stage. I'm thrilled to be the general evaluator for our meeting tonight. As general evaluator, I get to criticize every single one of you. I'm sure no criticism will be earned. My role is to evaluate the meeting overall, which I will do at the end, and also to manage a crack staff of other folks who are performing the most important roles tonight. I'm going to introduce them one by one. First, we'll start with our first evaluator, Dean Carath. Dean, can you share with us what your role is tonight?
I can. I will be evaluating Mary Cyrie's speech. She will be doing part 2 of the evaluation and feedback project. She's working in the visionary communication pathway. She says she will be giving a different speech than her first one, but the purpose is nearly the same, which is to inform the audience on innovative ways to use their vocabulary. From the evaluation form, the purpose is for the member to present a speech on any topic, receive feedback, and apply the feedback to a second speech. So this is the second speech. Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you, Mr. Evaluator number 1. Looking forward to Mary hearing how we can expand and use our vocabulary better. Our second evaluator is Rob Tidd. Rob, can you explain your role to us tonight?
I would be happy to, Madam General Evaluator. This evening, Jackie, not to be confused with John, as she is indicated on the screen, will be doing a level 4 project from the Engaging Humor Pathway. It will be extremely humorous, and she's engaged Heaven to help her out with this project. It includes 2 impromptu speeches. Each will be 2 to 3 minutes in length, with random topics picked out of a possible 11 choices by our Toastmaster, Steve Mediator, AKA Steve Schwinn. I look forward to this very interesting project. The title of the project is The Power of Humor in an Impromptu Speech by Jackie. And I will report at the end of the meeting on how well she did. Thank you very much, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you, Mr. Evaluator. Looking forward to what sounds like a really interesting and fun and unique speech, which will give our next person a lot to do because it sounds like there are several timing tasks within your speech. Our timer tonight is Vicki Chatterton. Vicki, where are you, Vicki?
It's gonna be me.
She's in the top left in my screen.
Yeah.
Vicki, will you tell us about your role tonight?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. If I screw up, remember it was Vicki and not me. Timing is really important. All of us have been tortured at meetings by people who did not understand that timing was important, and that can throw a group into chaos very, very quickly. The time limits are not arbitrary. They're actually designed to make us boil down what we're saying to its essence, as opposed to just gassing on. We do have a kind of an unusual group of timing assignments tonight. Mary, your speech is 5 to 7, correct? Okay, Mary's speech is 5 to 7. At 5 minutes, I'll display the green. At 7, the yellow. And at, 6, the yellow. And at 7, the red. Let's see, Jackie actually has 2 speeches of 2 to 3 each. So the green will come on at 2 minutes, the yellow at 2.5, and the red at 3. The table topics are 1 to 2 minutes each. So the green at 1, the yellow at 1.5, and the red at 2. And then the evaluations are 2 to 3 minutes. So 2, 2.5, 3. Back to you, wherever we are. There you are, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you. Let's move on now and hear from Pat Whitfield. Pat is our grammarian tonight. Tell us about your role, Pat.
My role is to be sure that no one assassinates the English language, that everyone is grammatical, is eloquent, and truly committed to being literate in the way in which they speak. The second part of my job is to introduce the word of the evening. And since our theme for tonight was time flies when you're having fun, I thought it would be nice to have the word serendipity. Okay, you can see it there, serendipity. Serendipity means an unplanned, fortunate discovery. It means the finding of an interesting and valuable thing by accident. For example, I'm sure you all heard this week that someone won the $1 billion lottery. Considering that their odds were something like 1 in 300 some million, it had to be serendipity that this resident of a little town in Michigan has $1 bazillion to do great things with. What serendipity? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Grammarian. It was serendipity then to get on this call today and find out that I'm the general evaluator. I'm glad I could experience that serendipity. Our next role is our Ah counter, and we are delighted to have Selena Danko in that role, our newest member to the club. Welcome, Selena. Tell us about your role.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. My role as ah counter tonight is to note words and sounds that are used as crutch or pause filler by anyone who speaks. During the meeting, I will listen for overused words, including and, well, but, so, and you know. I will also listen for filler sounds, including ah, and I will also note when a speaker repeats a word or phrase such as I, or this means. At the end of the meeting, I will report the number of times that each speaker used these expressions. And it is serendipitous that I found this script on the website when I forgot to bring my script home from work today. Thank you, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you, Madam Counter. You received no demerits for that last speech. You don't have no tick marks next to your name for that one. Very good. I believe I'm finished here. I'm not turning this back over to our Toastmaster, Steve Schwinn. Do I have that correct?
Yes.
Thank you, Kathleen. Well done. Our first speaker tonight, Mary Syrie, is a lover of words. She loves them so much that she chose vocabulary off to a good start here, vocabulary building as the topic for the speech evaluation and feedback project. 1 month ago, she riffed on ways to find new words. Tonight, she expands on the topic to describe innovative ways to increase one's vocabulary. Please help me in welcoming Mary Syrie. I love words too. I love words too, Mary Syrie.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. In my first speech of this series, I listed several ways to learn new words and expand your vocabulary. Reading, playing word games like Scrabble, or getting your word of the day fix from dictionary.com or a desktop calendar. But to my surprise, I did not recommend the most obvious resource of all, the dictionary. Fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, today, I will remedy that omission. I'm going to explore innovative ways people use the dictionary to build their vocabularies. Now, most people treat the dictionary as a reference book. They approach a dictionary with a specific word in mind to clarify its meaning, its pronunciation, its spelling, or its grammatical use. That's the usual way. In developing this speech, I've discovered that there's a cult of dictionary users. These are the people who read a dictionary cover to cover. Why do they do this? Well, there are two different kinds of dictionary readers in the world. The first group reads the dictionary for fun, because it's there. But the second group of dictionary readers read the dictionary for self-improvement, to expand their vocabulary in order to express themselves. And it's this group that inspires me. I'm going to tell you the story of two men, two well-known men of different generations and of different races. They both came from nothing, did not complete high school, but they used the dictionary as a tool to find the words to express themselves. The first of these two men is the civil rights leader from the 50s and 60s, Malcolm X. A teenage Malcolm X had a rough go of it in life. He left home early, he left school, he was living out in the streets, making a living, committing petty crimes. By the time he was 20, he was in prison, serving a 7-year term for larceny. While in prison, he converted to the Nation of Islam faith, and he wanted to write a letter to the founder, Elijah Muhammad. But with his level of vocabulary and his street slang, He struggled to write a letter that would even be comprehensible. He tried reading books, and he said they might as well have been written in Chinese. He could not understand them. So off to the prison library he went and got a dictionary. He rifled through it for a couple days and was absolutely amazed and intimidated to find out how many words there were in the English language. Where was he going to start? A good place to start is always at the beginning. So he started at A, reading the dictionary. In order for him to learn, he found that he needed to write down the words that he was reading. And at the end of each day, he would take what he had written in his own hand and read it out loud to reinforce it. He read, he wrote, and he spoke, and he learned. Malcolm X transcribed the entire dictionary, and as his vocabulary broadened, he could finally read books, and yes, he wrote the letter to Elijah Muhammad. He went on to become one of the most articulate and powerful leaders in Black America during the 50s and 60s. Sadly, he was assassinated in 1965 at the age of just 39 years old. If you haven't already read it, you might get a hold of a copy of the autobiography of Malcolm X. It's a very interesting and insightful read. The second person that read the dictionary is a contemporary recording artist. He's won several Grammys, he's won an Oscar, and he holds a Guinness World Record for the largest vocabulary of a recording artist. Who do you think this is? His name is Marshall Mathers III. You know him as the rap artist Eminem. Eminem experienced a childhood similar to Malcolm X, constantly moving, changing schools, absentee father, drug-addicted mother. He lived in a predominantly Black neighborhood in Detroit, and this is a big challenge for a white kid. But when he discovered rap, he found his voice. Did you know that rap is actually a rather competitive musical genre? So to succeed as a white guy in rap, Eminem needed more words and more rhymes than anyone else. So he started reading the dictionary. As he told Anderson Cooper in a 60 Minutes interview, I wanted to have all the dictionary words at my disposal. I wanted them in my mind, there, whenever I wanted to pull them out. But the words are just not in his mind. Like Malcolm X, he wrote words, ideas, phrases, and rhymes on hundreds of scraps of paper that he keeps in boxes to this day. He read, he wrote, and he rapped, and he learned. Now, I've been reading his lyrics as poetry, and once I got past the anger, the profanity, the vulgarity, I was surprised by the lyricism, the rhythm, and the autobiographical stories woven throughout. If you haven't given rap poetry a try, you might surprise yourself too. Did you think that you'd be listening to me talking about Malcolm X or Eminem today? Well, I'm surprised too, but doing the research was serendipitous for me. Malcolm X, Eminem, and people like them who can pull themselves out of their human condition inspire me. My fellow Toastmasters, you too are interested in self-improvement. That's why you're here. You're interested in innovative communication, and you love words too. How do I know? Because most of you told me that in your evaluation comments 30 days ago. So get out there, get yourself a dictionary, open it up, find a new word and use it. Express yourself.
Well, great job. Everyone, timer, can we have a minute on the clock for everyone to share their thoughts, please?
Yes, sir.
What's wrong?
That's a minute, Mr. Toastmaster.
Great, thank you, Lloyd. I was going somewhere and I lost it. Our next speaker tonight is Jackie Graybill, our president, our esteemed president. We all know Jackie to possess a flair for a little performing, and does a great job conveying her messages in an animated way. An admirable skill. She's great at doing impromptu, as she's given her speeches in the past. And tonight she's taking on a special little challenge. She's doing table topics on steroids, if you will. She has chosen a path tonight that involves my reading a couple of scenarios in life that lead into the need for someone to pick up the slack while everyone regroups. And lo and behold, it just evaporated. I had printed it and it was right here. What did I do with it? I'm going to have to ask for a little patience as I find this silly thing.
Is this the prompt, Steve? I'm called to give a speech when there's some technical difficulties.
I think that's
It's
one
right
of the
here.
options.
This is beautiful.
You need
Oh,
some
here it
filler?
is, of course. I put some notes on it. It has the notes that I was reading off of. Thank you so much for your patience, everyone. Jackie, I've got a couple of scenarios here that I've highlighted, and we're going to ask you to speak for a couple of minutes, 2 to 3 minutes, on each of these situations. Are you ready to roll?
Damn.
Number one, there's a natural disaster. You and many others are safe in a shelter, but there is a lot of fear and uncertainty. As a community leader, you are asked to speak for a few minutes to reassure and calm the group. Jackie, take it away.
I know that this might seem like a really horrible experience, but I just want to point to the fact that Ron was the one who forgot the ponchos and that Dean was the one who didn't look at the weather report, which is not like him. So we find ourselves right now in this gazebo, but there is hope because this isn't a hurricane, it's just a tornado. And when there's a tornado, what do? We in the South, we think about, what do we think about, people? We think about fried chicken, unless you're a vegetarian like me. We think about Dorothy in the Wizard of Oz and how that witch was going up. And here is the great news, y'all. When this is over, and I know it will, because the thing is, we'll be able to see that tornado coming and we can all just run. And I think there's a little crawl space under this gazebo that we can do. But the unfortunate thing is that it's really, really hard to run when you're carrying a puppy. So I don't know if Tyrion's gonna make it, but I would like to lead a little prayer right now that will help see us through this here circumstance that we find ourselves in today. Would you bow your heads? Please, please, please help us to survive. Help us to not hurt each other or get mad at each other, but let us see this day as the day our lives begin, because it could have been flashing in front of our eyes, just like that there lightning right there. So I encourage you all, if our life is flashing before our eyes, I forgot to say amen. If our lives are flashing before our eyes, let's just go around and let's say what the best thing in our lives is. And I know y'all have wonderful things in your lives, and there's a really good potential that we may lose our lives, but there's also really good potential that we might stay on this earth. So let's get about appreciating what we have in this life, and I'm gonna lead us in Amazing Grace. Amazing Grace, how sweet. Okay, let's let that be enough. I'll let someone else go. Thank you. You're all doing great.
Nicely done on try number 1. Number 2, you're at an event when the demonstration fails. The organizers, scrambling, call you up to speak to the audience and give words of encouragement and support.
Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. We are so excited for this momentous day. Are you excited? Oh my goodness, people. I know technology failed, but are you excited? Come on. I know you're excited. Oh, Mary's a little excited. Yay, she's a little excited. Okay, well, what I want you to do is I want you to listen to this really funny story that my friend told me. The thing is, she told me when I was at a domestic violence shelter with her. And that may not seem funny, but Penny Winnie told me this story, and it was really funny. She told me this story about one of her friends. And her friend was going through this really awful divorce. And her husband, he wanted the house more than anything. And she wanted it too. But she was smarter than him. So this is what she did. When he was out, she did something to the house. And then she said, you know what, honey, you can take the house. That's okay. And he was really, really surprised that she gave it up so easily. And he couldn't believe his luck. The only problem was a couple weeks later when he went to show the house, the people came in and they said, this is a beautiful house. What's that smell? Oh, what's that? Oh, I think we'll check another place out. Okay, thank you. And this kept happening over and over and over again. And they couldn't figure out what the problem was. He brought in a cleaner. The cleaner was the best cleaner in the whole city. And the cleaner said, I'm sorry, I've cleaned it top to bottom. I don't know what the problem is. So the man decided he was going to drop the price. He dropped it. He dropped it again. And finally came the day when his ex-wife got the call. Hey, you know what? I'm having a hard time selling this house. Would you take half? You would? Oh, I'm so glad to get this off my hands. So, very next week, she came into her house and she promptly went over to the curtains. She grabbed a little step stool and she reached up and she grabbed the curtain rod and she pulled the end out. And then she went over to the trash and she dumped out the shrimp tails she had put in there that he had not found. And that woman is my hero. I want to thank you all so much for bearing with us during our technical difficulties. We are now back up, so we are going to give a huge round of applause for our speaker. Let's go. Thank you. Yeah.
Nicely done. See how easy it flows, Jackie? Comes right out of your little satin lips. Can we have another minute on the timer for comments to Jackie?
That's a minute, Mr. Toastmaster.
All right, thank you. Did I miss somewhere along the lines who was stepping in as table topics?
I'm going to do it, Steve.
Okay, good enough. You weren't. I was going to try to wing it myself. I'd like to now introduce the master of table topics, a fun part of the evening when we get to learn to speak extemporaneously. I'll turn over the channel to Lloyd.
Thank you very much. Table topics is an unusual thing. It is kind of fun. It seems informal. It seems like there's not much to it. But if you think about it for a second, it's the most realistic kind of speaking we do in Toastmasters. Anytime during the day when you're asked a question or asked for information or asked for an opinion, in a sense, you give a little miniature speech, and that's a table topic speech. And I think all of you know that just from talking to people at work and whatnot, people who seem well organized seem smarter. They're more likely to be believed. So that's the goal, is to learn how to do that kind of speaking. The prompt tonight, time flies when you're having fun, is of course an old saying. Most of you probably heard it at one time or another in your life. But I saw an example of it when I was mulling over what to do for a theme for the meeting. I was down at Fred Meyer's, and the woman next to me who was putting bags of groceries in her trunk picked one up out of the cart. And just as she got it to her trunk, the bag let go and a bunch of stuff fell out on the ground. And she said, well, time just flies when you're having fun, and then started screaming obscenities. I left the obscenities off of the topic because you can see there isn't enough room for them. But in any event, I was wondering about that. Time is an unusual thing. And so let's see, let's start with Kathleen. Everybody has a speaking role, so everybody will, I hope, or we'll just kind of randomize the table topics. But Kathleen, is it true that time seems to travel more slowly when you're angry?
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. Does time travel more slowly when you're angry? I would say no. I think that when a person is angry, for example, when I might be angry, I have a hard time keeping track of the time. It could fly by and I could be angry for days. Let me just admit it. I think time flies when you're having fun, where that saying is more about, we don't want to lose our fun. You know, we get it, we're doing something we enjoy, and it goes too quickly. It seems to go too quickly. But if we're angry or mad, it seems to go more slowly, especially if it's something that we're not doing for fun. Being angry is a little different. Some people might think that's fun, but most people would not. Most people wouldn't think that it's something you didn't want to be doing. I would say overall, go for having fun and the heck with it if time flies. It'd be better to have time fly and have fun than be angry and have time fly or not. Thank you, Mr. Table Topics.
Thank you, Kathleen. There's a great American novel called Catch-22 by Joseph Heller. And that book is filled with unusual things, including the notion of how time works. At one point, one of the characters in the book explains that he is deliberately taking up incredibly boring hobbies because when he's bored, time seems to slow way down. And if time slows down, he'll live longer. You see what he's getting at? If you're doing things you enjoy, time moves right along and it'll go faster and you'll die sooner. So Steve, what is the most boring activity you can think of? The thing that would make you live the longest because time would go so slowly?
Am I unmuted? I lost myself.
Yeah.
That's an interesting question. I'm trying to think of what might bore me to tears, and watching paint dry would certainly get me there. I think the interesting thing about time is that we think about how this minute won't end, this half hour is lasting forever. The day seems to languish. When we're present in our thoughts about time, I think it expands that time a little bit compared to when we're buried in an activity and suddenly it's an hour later or 2 hours later. I think one of the toughest times that I have is when I have to listen to mundane people drone on a topic. That's when I get just completely irritated and think, will this never end? That's when I can see time stretch out. I think the interesting thing about that end of that time period, when we feel time would not end, maybe it's the next day we look back and think, it's the next day. What happened to the day before? It's already gone. Time is elusive. I think we need to be mindful of it and make sure that we plug in all the value we can in our lives to avoid wasting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. I think we need a deeply philosophical question now. So I'm going to turn to our resident philosopher, Rob Kidd, for this next one. One of David Bowie's more famous lyrics is in a song called Changes, where he says, "Time can change me, but I can't change time." What do you think about that thought, Rob?
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. I think that makes a lot of sense. Time does change all of us. When we are young, time seems to be elusive. As we grow older, I think we become more cognizant of time and more conscious, more possessive of our time. because we don't know how much time we have left. And we really can't control time. We are subject to the changes in the weather. We're subject to the changes in the political landscape. We are subject to things that are going on in time around us that we cannot control. I think that is a great concept. I have never thought of it that way, but it certainly makes a lot of sense. And I know for me personally, I like to be busy because time does seem to go faster if I'm doing something, if I'm occupied doing something, whether it's for fun or if it's something involving my work. Time does fly by, but at least I know I'm making the most of it. And I think my time is done. Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Rob. Whoops, wait a minute here. I was about to have a timing problem myself by showing the red card as the first card to the next speaker. Let's see here. Selena, how about this one for you? Think back to when you were a little kid and you were anticipating something like, say, Christmas or your birthday or something like that. How did you get through that time? In other words, how did you fill the time or ignore it or make it go away or whatever you did when you were a little kid?
Thank you for that table topics question regarding time and filling time. When I was a child, the way I made time speed up was to go exploring on my family's 130-acre farm. I was the family goat herd. We had 60 goats that I traveled around the farm with every day. And the day seemed to usually fly, even though it was a summer day and the days were long. I would travel around with the goats. I would pull down branches for them so they could eat the freshest, greenest greens. I named all the goats. I visited people who lived on nearby farms and talked to them about their stories. I learned from them the different names of all the plants that grew in the woods. I learned about mushrooms that you could eat. I got to pet their dogs. I got to pet their cats. And learned about their different careers that they were interested in pursuing when they left the farm. And that's how I passed my time when I was waiting for something exciting to happen. Back to you.
Thank you. Okay, we have time for one more. Pat, this one's for you. What is the best time you've ever had?
Oh, I've been blessed to have so many lovely moments in my life. I think it was the weekend that I met my husband. Went up to Mammoth skiing with some friends, some fellow teachers who were cocktailing on the weekends in the place where he was the manager of a restaurant and bar. And if you know anything about ski towns, Saturday night is a big night. It was Thanksgiving weekend, met him, and he asked me if I would like to dance with him. But he, as manager, was helping the bartender tend the bar because of the crowd. And I said, oh, sure. And what happened was when I went to look for him to dance after we had had dinner, he was out on the floor dancing with somebody else. So I said, well, he's a turkey. Let me get out of here. Anyway, the next night he was there. He said, I thought you were going to save me a dance. I said, well, you were otherwise occupied. And he said, well, how about tonight? I said, well, if you're ready before my friends go down the hill, because at Mammoth, you're at the top of the mountain. And he said, well, I'll take you down. And I said, well, my friends are reliable. And he said, you don't think I'm reliable? And I said, no. So he took off his bartender's apron and took me out to dinner. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we went back. And going home in the car, my happy moment was I said to my friends, guess what? I'm going to marry him. And they all just went, what? Because he was the most eligible bachelor on the hill. And it didn't seem as though he would focus his energy on this little old school teacher from Southern California. That was a happy time, and we had 37 very happy years.
Thank you, Pat. That concludes table topics for the night. I will turn things back over to our Toastmaster, Steve.
Thank you, Pat. That was just, oh, that made me feel all squidgy. I like that story. As serendipity would have it, with me being Toastmaster tonight, I get to almost revisit the table topics. The one part that I didn't get to incorporate into my little speech was the part about when time grinds to a halt is in a car accident. It's amazing how much time you have to think about everything that's happening in that event, which really is a pretty speedy occurrence, but your brain goes at warp speed. It seems as though time grinds to a halt and you have a lot of time to consider, whoops, look what's happening. Isn't this amazing? Yeah, I knew that would be riveting. All right, then. Now I will return the general evaluator's position to the front of the room to tell us how our meeting went. Kathleen, would you jump in?
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Yes, I will jump in with both feet.
Thank you.
I don't recall the protocol. I'm going to do my meeting evaluation first and then call on people. If that's
No.
backwards.
Yeah, it's backwards.
You're
Okay.
last.
All right, then I will call on people. Let's hear first. Oh, of course, because we have to have our speech evaluators. Let's hear first from Dean Carath.
Thank you. Mary, another wonderful speech. I liked your organization. You had, of course, an intro, a body, and a conclusion, as you often do. I like this intro because it tied back to the last speech that you gave approximately a month ago, and you had a review of some of the other methods that you talked about for us to improve our vocabulary. And then you rolled into what you called an innovative method of improving our vocabulary. And I'd been thinking it was going to be some wild internet thing or something I couldn't even imagine. And poof, what a surprise. You hauled out the dictionary. And I'm like, yeah, that really is pretty innovative because I don't even own one, although I have perfect access to one on the internet. Then you gave us two incredible, wonderful stories about two individuals that improved their vocabulary and how much it meant to their lives to do so. That was very inspiring. And it certainly inspired me to continue doing that. By the way, I have been using the internet dictionary to look up words ever since your last speech when I don't know them. So good job on that. That's perfect proof that you have been successful in inspiring us. And finally, your conclusion, you had a call to action as well as going over your innovative technique. You even had your dictionary out there to hold it for us and to support your call to action that we should get out there and read the dictionary and use it. And I guarantee you that at least I will. You had a couple of other things that you'd asked me to specifically look at. And one of those was to use the introduction and conclusion to clarify the speech purpose. And you certainly did that. And to be clearer about the purpose of the speech and make sure it focuses on the purpose and omit any extraneous information however interesting it is. And quite frankly, I didn't hear any extraneous information. I didn't wonder, well, what the heck is that doing in your speech for? I didn't see that you used notes. Your delivery was energetic. I mentioned before that you always look like you're having fun giving your speech, and I think you really are. And that really helps, that delivery really helps us have fun as well as be informed. So again, great job. Look forward to more from you in the future. Thank you, Mary.
Sorry. You're going to fire me, aren't you? Never asked me to do this again. Let's move on to our second evaluator, Rob Tidd.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. When I found out that I was going to evaluate Jackie's speech tonight, I was excited because it struck me as being like a table topics on steroids. Not only did she have to respond to a question that she didn't know in advance, but she had to include humor in it. Her first speech, as always, she used a voice from one of her sisters, a Southern drawl and slang, which she does quite well. I think she used to do this probably when she was growing up, using that Southern accent. Because she gets to use that language, she gets to use words that maybe otherwise would be considered filler words. But that's okay. It's all part of the persona, and she did a fantastic job, including the use of props and dogs. I thought those were quite appropriate as well. The singing, Jackie, I think you're going to need to practice a little more on the singing because it wasn't your best effort. The second speech involved an event that failed for one reason or another, and it was serendipitous that the event was able to get you to go up on stage and kind of save the day. Your excitement was contagious. You had the great use of story, of a personal story that kept everybody's attention. I never know where you're going to go with these stories, so it's always interesting to find out. And I love the story. It was a great story, and it would have been perfect for just a failed event in this particular speech. I think you did a wonderful job using some of the tools that we use in table topics. And that is, you don't always have to answer the exact question. You can go off on a tangent as long as you're talking about something that has a story behind it. And you certainly did that in your second speech. As always, Jackie, you do a great job. You always have humor in your stories and in your speeches. So really, this was not that hard for you, I don't think. It might be harder for someone else, but not for you. You're a natural at it. I don't have anything negative or constructive to say about your speeches. You did a fantastic job. Keep it up. Back to you, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you, Mr. Evaluator number 2, Rob Tidd. Let's quickly turn our attention to the timer, Lloyd Smith.
Thank you, Kathleen. This was an interesting one, a lot of unusual timing. Mary, your speech was 7:26. Jackie, your first speech was 2:58 and your second speech was 2:57. For table topics, Kathleen, 1:36, Steve, 1:48, Rob, 1:33, Selena, 1:15, Pat, 2:01. For evaluations, first, Dean, I'm sorry I messed your timing up. I showed you the green card a minute early, but I think you realized it was wrong. Your evaluation was 2:55 and Rob, yours was 2:57. Back to you, Kathleen.
Thank you very much. Let's move on and hear from Pat, our grammarian.
What an articulate group you were this evening. First of all, let me talk about the word of the day or the word of the evening. It was serendipity. Only one person used it as written, serendipity, but this many people use the word as serendipitous or serendipity. Rob, Steve, Selena, Mary, and Kathleen. So 5 of you incorporated the word into what you were saying. The king of eloquence tonight was Steve Schwind. I wrote down a number of eloquent phrases that he used and language that he used. He talked about something being perfunctory. He talked about a Zoom casualty. He introduced the terms table topics on steroids, which Rob borrowed a little bit later. Talked about someone's satin lips. He said the days seemed to languish. And he also said, it made me feel all squidgy. So he really used a variety of eloquent and not so eloquent, but very attention-getting language. Mary also, very articulate. She said, I will remedy that omission. I loved her concept of the cult of dictionary users. She used a pair of words very nicely together, amazed and intimidated. And then she created a phrase as she talked about both of her characters. The first, he read, he wrote, he spoke, and he learned. The second, Eminem, he read, he wrote, he rapped, and he learned. Like I said, what an eloquent group this evening. I didn't catch any grammatical errors, and you know I'm always really picky about that. This was a joy. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Grammarian. Finally, Selena, would you like to provide us with our counting?
Yes, it would be my pleasure, especially tonight because there aren't very many. It could be that I'm just not good at counting all of them, but I didn't count a lot. I counted a few for myself. Rob, I heard 1 repeat for you. Lloyd, I think I heard an Dean, 1 so. John was clean. Mary, 1 repeat. Steve, an and a repeat. Kathleen, you were clean. Patricia, I heard a so. And for myself, I heard some ums and some repeats, and I just added 1 in this conversation. Jackie, I think all of yours were excused by Rob. He said you didn't use any filler words because they were on purpose, but I did count an and I did count 6 repeats, but again, they were all on purpose. So they were there for a reason. And back to you, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you, Madam Counter. I will very briefly evaluate the meeting because we are short on time. The main thing I would say that is a compliment is people stepping up for the steppers and jumping in, and some people playing multiple roles and coming up with what they had to do at the last minute. That was congratulations. I wanted to congratulate Selena on her table topics. I thought she did a really nice job. We're really happy to have you as part of our club and step in there, and it takes a lot of nerve. So congratulations and thank you. The one thing I would point out, a quote from Steve Schwind, who's been quoted a lot tonight. He said he really disliked it when mundane people drone on a topic. And that made me think, is it serendipity that he's a member of Toastmasters? The only negative thing I would mention is I think we're losing track of our applause, and that could just be me. And it's because we don't have an auditory cue. Something to keep in mind for the future. And perhaps as we turn it back to the president, we can give her a round of applause. Back to you, Madam President.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. That was a good catch. Very good catch. What a fun night. Are we going to send our votes to a particular person?
Oh.
That would be Rob. Okay. let's send our votes to Rob for the speaker of the evening. And Lloyd, do you have anything you would like to add?
Nope, not really.
I would like to say that the word that Steve used, squidgy, I found out is a British word.
Blimey.
Yes, did you know that?
No, I did not.
It's a British word.
Oh, good golly.
And it means kind of squishy, but like in a pleasant way. Oh, you're just so squidgy. Like that. Like I would probably tell Tyrion, you're so squidgy. Yeah, that's my Tyrion mama voice.
I have a picky question for Mary. Is the 2 in your title the number 2, or is it the word 2?
I don't know.
Okay.
It's speech number 2, and I just thought it was cute.
Part 2, okay.
Yeah, nobody sees it. We don't put titles on our agendas, so
That's true. We don't.
people just hear that.
Told you it was picky.
Does anybody want to see a picture?
Yes, I do.
This was a recent effort.
Ooh, wow, that's amazing. Very nice.
Do we know who that is?
Is that Dean? No, it's Eric. No. Who is it?
You get the prize. It's Eric.
Oh, that's what I thought. Good, good.
I didn't do it tonight. I did it. I did a couple of little things on it.
You're so talented, Steve. Talented Toastmaster, talented artist. Do you have a count for us, Rob?
I don't have a count, Madam President, but I do have a winner.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, of course. And we did have a couple people garner votes tonight, but the outright winner tonight was Mary Syrie. Congratulations, Mary.
Yay! Thank you all so much for a fantastic and intimate evening. Loved it. And we're about 3 minutes over, but I think we're doing pretty well. So I will look forward to seeing you all next week.
Jackie, I gotta say that I'm impressed with the fact that you get up or stay up. I'm thinking you must get up to participate and remain part of the gang. Love having you.
Thank you. I'm actually stuck in the US right now until the lockdown's over. So it's 6:33 for me right now, but I will, when I go over there, I will stay up and continue to remain a part of the gang as long as I can.
Well, Jackie, thanks for staying up until 6:30 tonight.
Hey, at least I didn't have to get up at 4:30 like I did on Saturday for training over in the UK. So,
Okay, Rob, you're going to stop the recording, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
perfect.
See you
Bye,
later.
all.